We should venerate or show honor to icons or images of Christ, Mary, or the saints.
Ooh,
Three options. Sorry. Yes, veneration is important. Or no, icons are good teaching tools, but veneration is just short of idolatry. Or we shouldn't have any such images to begin with. This is kind of veneration is kind of a gray area, because the people who do venerate icons and images of Christ and Mary and the saints, they'll separate that from worship. But what they're doing is they feel that they can derive some sort of spiritual power, or they do show a reverence for the image itself. I think not only for what it represents. I may be wrong about that actually, but they do it in a way that looks an awful lot like worship to those of us who don't do it. But I don't think it's not the same as worship. But I do think, just to give my answer before you give yours, I do think that an overemphasis on it can quickly lead into finding power and, divinity almost in the images themselves, and not necessarily in just using the images as a reminder of Jesus and of the saints. And if that's all it is, if it's just using icons to remember and as a kind of a visual tool to help you reflect on those who have come before you and on Christ, then I think that's perfectly fine. I think that all of the iconography of this traditional church is all very cool, and I look at it and I think it's really great, and it causes me to have that. It causes me to remember and think on Christ and think on the church, and so I think that's a good thing. But I could see how it could lead to idolatry if you're focusing on the images themselves and not what the images represent. So that's why I'm going to go with the second option, that icons are good teaching tools, but veneration is a little too close to idolatry. So I don't know if I would venerate the images themselves. I would say I'm venerating Christ by reflecting on him, by looking at the images, right? But veneration of the images, it gets a little close to idolatry.
Would the cross be an icon?
The cross, I think an icon would just be any sort of religious symbolism or art or visual tool. Typically it is like what you see in the picture right there, where it's artwork of people. But I think typically the cross, I think they would say that, like, the crucifix, like the ones that they use where it's like Jesus is actually on it, you know. A lot of times in our churches it's just like a cross with no Jesus on it. They would say that that's iconography, so I think that would count.
I'm tied between these two.
We shouldn't have any such images,
because I don't know. I kind of look to the 10 Commandments and you shall not make any images, and I struggle with that because I feel like sometimes, so it's like TV series about Jesus and like how they create, an image, and how like people will, like, they would go to that TV and be like, oh, I'm so impacted, but they never go into scripture themselves to, to read it. That's that tie. That's the only thing. Like, that's why I don't like the image of Christ wise. Like, that's why I'm kind of on the front, But if we're talking about the cross and stuff, I guess I would have to go to the second one.
So let me stop your train of thought there before you keep going. You talked about how people who look at like TV shows, like The Chosen, for example, and they feel very connected to like the story, but they don't actually spend time in the Word. Wouldn't you say that's better than them not getting exposure to the gospel at all?
Yes, but I feel like it's like they fill in the missing, like they fill in pieces as best as they can in situations.
In the shows they do?
Yeah, in the shows they do, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
And I say, well, if we're holding up scripture and certain things, I don't know. I just feel like it's better that they're watching, the Chosen series and maybe watching some inappropriate things, But at the same time, it's like if they don't get into the word, and I think there's always with anything actually where you can listen to something too much, and that could be sermons for a preacher or see. I'm on the. This is tough.
Let me also address something else while you continue to think. The idea of the Ten Commandments, where it says don't make any images, I don't think that means to not make artwork of Jesus or of anything like that. Because you think about what the Israelites did. They had the Ark of the Covenant, which had cherubim on it. They had the temples that they built, which had images and statues of angels and of heavenly beings, right? Like that. And God commanded them to build those and to build them exactly as they did. And so I don't think that Ten Commandments is a condemnation of religious artwork or of religious iconography being used in worship.